Here are the facts. The terrorist who gunned down American soldiers blocks away from the White House in an ambush was an Afghan national who was flown into our country by Joe Biden's administration in September 2021 in the chaotic wake of their botched withdrawal from Afghanistan.
I want to just pay my respects to the National Guard and those two incredible people. One is no longer with us. One is looking down and loves her parents. I spoke to her parents the other night, and she's looking down, and she's so proud of her country, and she's so loved her parents so much, and her parents couldn't believe what happened, could not believe it, what happened to their baby, what happened to their daughter. She's gone. And we have another one who's fighting for his life, as you know, and he's a fabulous young man, both of them were the best everything, the best of their class, And maybe he'll be okay. He's gone through a lot, but maybe he'll be okay. But I want to tell you what the National Guard's done, along with other people, including our military, to D.C. Just if we look at D.C., we have a safe city again.
One of the most embarrassing moments in the history of our great country. Joe Biden's historic failure in Afghanistan continues to haunt this country and our men and women in uniform. Not only did this surrender lead to a suicide bombing that killed 13 American heroes in Kabul, but now National Guard troops were shot on U.S. soil by the same kind of enemy. We continue to live with the deadly consequences of Joe Biden's horrific leadership. Nearly 100,000 Afghans were recklessly released into the United States with little to no vetting. There was no regard for the disorder and violence that this would unleash on American communities and American culture. Reportedly, thousands of these strangers and unknown individuals were flagged to the Biden administration for national security, public safety, and fraud concerns. But the terrifying truth is that the Afghanistan debacle is just a small part of Democrats' complete and total betrayal of the American people during the Biden years. The tragedy that we just witnessed the day before Thanksgiving is a reminder that untold thousands of terrorists, gang members, and criminals were invited into our country and remain here to this very day. The border is now secure, thanks to President Trump, but the threat in our interior remains real and urgent. These public safety threats are already inside our land, and President Trump was elected on a promise to find and remove them, and he has already taken significant steps and made significant progress towards fulfilling this promise. But there is more work to be done because President Trump believes that he has a sacred obligation to reverse the calamity of mass, unchecked migration into our country. As a result, the Trump administration is now actively re-examining all of the Afghans imported into the country by Joe Biden. Any individual who threatens our national security or our citizenry will be subject to removal. President Trump has already permanently paused migration of foreign nationals from third world countries that pose a very high risk to the United States. For too long, past American presidents supported self-destructive immigration policies that allowed foreigners who outright hate our country and have no interest in assimilating into our culture, they've allowed these individuals to flood peaceful American communities. This disastrous approach has drained our welfare program, driven up the cost of housing, suppressed wages, and jeopardized the safety of law-abiding American citizens.
Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Thanks for your time, Mick. Good to see you. Look, this immigration crackdown, Trump was doing it anyway, but this shooting of these two National Guards has certainly given him a lot of momentum, hasn't it?
It has. This one hurts a lot in a lot of different ways, Laura. This happened about 2 blocks from the White House. It happened across the street from my office in Washington, D.C. This is a heavily traveled part of the city, number one, so it brings home the general violence to a bunch of people who are ordinarily exposed to it. But more importantly, probably the guy who allegedly shot them, everybody thinks, pretty much admits that, I mean, they've got him on video, fought with us in Afghanistan and came here under a program that was specifically designed for our friends, for people who had risked their lives to help us in Afghanistan. And then to get here, because if we'd left them behind, they would have been killed by the Taliban after we left. So a wonderfully motivated program, but then the guy gets here, apparently is vetted by both the Biden and to a certain extent by the Trump administration. And then I don't know what happens. Nobody does at this point. There's some discussion about whether or not he had PTSD from his military activity, but you almost hope, Laura, that there is mental illness here. You hope that he went crazy, and you hope that this wasn't a real breakdown in the process. Because if it's the latter, if it's that the Taliban were able to get people into this country, using these programs, then we have a really, really serious problem on our hands, because tens of thousands of people have entered the country under this program to help our allies resettle in the U.S.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, does he have a lot of political support for this crackdown? Have you noticed, is it, one of those points where there is a bit of a change, a shift in attitudes?
A little bit. Again, if it's a mental health issue, that makes it different than it is if it's sort of a planned program by the Taliban, which would just absolutely shake our immigration programs to the core. But yes, anytime you get a violent act like this, again, it's hard to describe the importance of the location of this. And I don't mean to minimize the loss of life, which is significant, but this is 2 blocks from the White House. So this has a lot of people's attention. You do not hear a lot of people pushing back, saying that the Trump team is overreacting to this. I fully expect to see a much more difficult legal immigration process now for at least the next, 9 months, 12 months, year and a half, maybe the rest of the first term. This will have a dramatic chilling effect on legal immigration in this country, without question.
I mean, there is a lot of coverage of ICE, both negative and positive. Has that crackdown? What's the real effect of that?
Yeah, that's almost a different story. I guess it's a different story now than it was a week ago. Look, I think what you're hearing a lot of people talk about, especially in these midterm elections that I talked about last week, are saying, well, we voted for Donald Trump because we wanted Donald Trump to get the violent criminals who are here illegally out of the country. That was an 80% issue in the 2024 election. And what the Trump team has delivered is different than that. They've been rounding up a bunch of people, not just the violent offenders. There's a reason for that, which we could talk about if you like. It's not done by accident, but it's not as politically popular as rounding up violent criminals. But you fast forward to this event, and clearly this guy's a violent criminal. Now, he wasn't here illegally by any stretch of the imagination. But when even a legal immigrant, a recently legalized immigrant, does this sort of thing, it's going to bring a whole bunch of attention on the overall immigrant community, and that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, right. So is it ICE, and let's extrapolate on this a little bit, is ICE actually, I mean, we have those anecdotal stories about, long-term residents someone who committed a crime in their teens. They're now in their 40s with a family, a tax-paying member of society, and they're being rounded up, removed from their families and sent back to a country they don't even know. Is that the rare but amplified stories that we hear about, or is ICE actually removing some of these legitimate criminals?
It's probably a little bit both. I mean, they are removing legitimate criminals. There's no question about that. They're also removing people who have been here relatively peacefully for a long time, illegally entered the country, and thus a criminal of some status, but not the same thing as, say, a violent criminal. And that's the debate this country has been having. And the Republicans have not been winning that debate necessarily, which is one of the things, not the only thing, but one of the things that contributed in some fashion to their losses in the off-year elections a couple of weeks ago. But what the administration would point to is, look, we know it's been uncomfortable. We know we've maybe rounded up some people that we might otherwise not have. But the illegal crossings at the southern border have gone to practically zero. So the problem has, in that sense, almost been solved. The illegal immigration, you don't hear anything about waves of people coming across the Texas, California, Arizona borders anymore because it's not happening. The Trump administration has managed to send the message that if you do get here and we catch you, you're going back. And that's a dramatic change over the course of the, say, last 25 years or so. It used to be everybody knew if they could get here, they could stay. That has changed. So it has been difficult. It has been uncomfortable. It has been ugly in some circumstances, but that portion of it has worked. It'll be curious to see how it plays out, Laura, now that this very high profile, very, very difficult situation took place this week.
Yeah, but what's the first political test for Trump, really? Electoral test. That doesn't come until the midterms, and that's still a year away.
Yeah, there is. There's a really good election next week, Tuesday. A special election here. You guys call it a by-election. It's a special election in Tennessee in a district that Donald Trump won by 22 percentage points.
Wow.
And the polling data in the last run-ups to the election will tell you the race is tied between the Republican and the Democrat. Even though it's a special election, and those are a little bit unusual for us. In fact, they're a lot unusual. We will all be watching that very, very closely. If the Democrats win, goodness gracious, it will send shockwaves. But even if they come close to winning, it'll send the message that Republicans, that whatever it is they are selling right now, be it on immigration, inflation, the economy, foreign policy, isn't working.
Yeah, okay. One to watch. Tennessee, Tuesday. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Mick.